with the opportunity to be part of missions and community service and serving, whether it be here in Colorado, other states, and even outside of the country. I would go with a team of missionaries, and we would go to this place and we would just do what we can to serve the people that live there. And I think everybody that has been on these can agree that they are tiring and that they are a lot of work, that they are physically and emotionally just draining. And they're long days, long hours, but we wouldn't trade them for the world. They've been the best experiences of my life, the best weeks, the best days of my life have come through the chance to serve with my friends, serve other people. And so I think that that's something that has really helped shaped me as to who that I am today. Winston Churchill once said that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Currently in our world, we live in a world that our environment is getting dirtier and our teenagers are getting more entitled, and just an unhealthy lifestyle is just being promoted. And so because of these problems, mandatory community service should be mandatory for adolescents in order to graduate high school. A lot of times we hear the word mandatory and we get scared because we think forced, and it's something that we probably don't want to do and it's something that we're going to hate. But giving teenagers the opportunity to serve others and to put other people above themselves is actually going to teach them humility. It's going to provide communities with workers to help clean up the environment, to clean up those communities. It's going to, studies have also shown that it can improve health of the person that is serving, and it can also help teenagers to find their passion, find what it is that they like to do in life, because this is a stage where a lot of us are just trying to figure that out. So first of all, let's focus on what some of the needs of this are. Growing up also in a public school, I have seen kids show up with name brand shoes on their feet, and they roll up into the parking lot and they park their Mercedes cars or their Mustangs, and they just see themselves as more important and as better because they don't know what it's like to have a need in their lives, and they don't know what other people's lives are like and the needs that they have, and they've never seen that firsthand. And on top of that, in Colorado Springs specifically, where I live, homelessness over the years have been rising by 4%. And while I guess that seems like a small number, it makes a big impact in the community as a whole. For schools that say live by the ocean or near the ocean, that kind of stuff, their oceans are covered in trash. Their beaches, you can barely walk without finding plastic or bottles or glass or something like that. We live in a place that needs workers. We need people that are willing to sacrifice their daily lives to serve in their community and to serve others. Area extension specialists have conducted studies about the impact that the youth have in America. So for example, just youth alone brings about 2.4 billion hours annually of community service. That's how many hours. And that is bringing in approximately $34.3 billion to the economy. And this is with approximately 55% of the youth serving in one way or another. So imagine what we did if we took 55% and we raised it as high as we can raise it. Now, that would boost the economy, would have more youth working, would make a better impact in our community and in our nation as a whole in the economy. And many public health guides, studies, and even testimonies from volunteers themselves have spoken that volunteering has helped relieve stress, anxiety, depression, anger, and some of those really strong emotions. While it doesn't take them away, they have reported to have been relieved into, in that moment, it being a really healing, soothing thing for them to do with whatever it is that they're struggling with. On top of that, they've also reported feeling just accomplished and like a sense of purpose because they've done something good. And so this in turn is also creating a better work ethic in their lives, and they're more motivated to do more and to be involved more, which is, I think, is crucial for teenagers to have that work ethic and to learn early on what it means to work and to provide and to do things for others. I don't want to butcher his name, but a young man named Quran Khan. He's a young student. He's about to be 19 years old, and he's always dreamed of becoming a doctor and working with the World Health Organization in some way. And starting from when he was 9 years old, his parents got him involved in community service and in volunteering and really doing whatever he can to serve. And while at first he was a little bit reluctant to do this, it actually ended up pointing him to what his passions are. So he discovered his passion about different cultures and the different religions within that culture and just people's backgrounds and where they come from. And believes that this passion is going to help him with his career in becoming a doctor and working with the World Health Organization, because he can reach patients that are different than he is or what he's normally around, and he can relate to them in a different way than many others could. And for that was just super important to him. And so because he was able to volunteer and be involved early on, he learned that this was the focus that he wanted in his life. Another example I have was actually from my own personal experience. A few years ago, I got to go to Costa Rica for a week and just serve in some of the neighborhoods down there, in some of the poorest neighborhoods, that you walk into somebody's home and their door is a curtain and their floor is the dirt, and that's how they live. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me. And one of the things that we got to do actually is pour concrete for this local community center, where a lot of kids went to learn English and to just play and have fun. And the place that they were playing on was filled with broken glass and with beer bottles and cigarettes and just all kinds of just awful things that children should not be playing around or in or anything like that. But that's all they had to do. So we had the opportunity to go in there and to pour concrete on this and create this slab, so the children no longer had to play in broken glass and beer bottles, but on something that is safer for them. And so here's a picture, first and foremost, of before. It's probably hard to see there, but I'll pass it around. This is what it looked like before we had poured the concrete. You see a lot of, it's black and white, so it's hard to see the trash that's all around there, but also just the cement and a lot of those. So that's that picture of that. Basically of what it was when we got there and just what we saw that the kids had to play on. And then that was when we were actually also almost finished with pouring concrete. We just had a little bit section left. And then this is a picture coming back this year of what it looks like now. And because we had poured that concrete slab, they were able to build a playground for that community center and for those kids, which they would not have had the opportunity to do if it wasn't for volunteers coming in and saying, kids should not be playing in glass, so let's do something about that. And so that right there is just picture proof of what volunteers and community servers will do for an environment. It can totally transform it from something that is broken and full of glass to something that brings joy to children. And I think that makes just everything worth it. And so think about the community that you live in. Whatever state it is, whatever country it is, picture it like this place in Costa Rica. All of the bad things and all of the broken things of this community, things that you know about it, and say, what would it look like if we transformed it, if we decided to pour concrete on it? Imagine what it would be like to walk outside and to breathe fresh air. If for schools that are by the ocean, what it would be like to go to a beach day and not have to worry about the trash you might be stepping on, or how it's harming the animals or the environment around that also. Imagine if teenagers, instead of worrying about what brand they have on their feet, what brand of shoes they have, they're worried about those who don't even have shoes. And they're thinking, okay, well, I can get these expensive shoes that look probably pretty cool. or I can use that for somebody that walks barefoot on the ground. Teenagers, people, adults in general, would come from a place of entitlement to a place of humility, from a place of laziness to a place of work ethic, and to understanding what it means to serve. And so obviously it's not going to have the same benefits for every person that has to mandatory to do community service. There are teenagers, people in general that are going to be reluctant, that are going to not want to do it, that are going to complain about it, and it may not be as beneficial for them or the environment that they're serving in. But overall, and for the people as a whole, it would create just a safer and a more fun and a more joyful place to live in. And so if you, as you're sitting here in this audience, if you would see this as something that can be beneficial for our future, and if you see the hope that this could bring to our future and to just the people of the world and to yourself also, then I have a petition here to sign just to kind of bring to the local school district here in Colorado Springs, District 20, and say to them, what would happen if this school district said students will be participating in serving others rather than themselves? And so if you agree with that, then here is a petition for you to sign. When I think about community service, one of the first things I actually thought of was marriage, because when it comes to spending your life with another human being, it requires sacrifice and it requires a lot of compromise and doing things that you probably originally wouldn't want to do. And it involves serving that person in one way or another. And so while, yes, I do understand the argument that making community service mandatory is taking away the idea of volunteering and people doing it on their own, if we all, and also at the same time, like a lot of teenagers will not want to do this, but if we all chose to do things just on the basis of we don't want to, marriages would fail more often than they are. You probably wouldn't get a job because you just hate working. You wouldn't go to school because you hate the homework. There are so many things that we don't want to do, but that we do anyways to better ourselves and to better our future. And this is one of those instances as well. And that is why community service will be beneficial for individuals, for communities, and for the country as a whole. I also had just a couple questions I'd like to ask you guys. First of all, if you were in this position and in high school growing up, you had to do mandatory community service, is there a specific project or anything like that that you would want to do or want to focus on?
I would want to serve in an animal shelter or a food bank.
Cool. And then my next question is, how many hours a year do you think is like a reasonable commitment for teenagers that should be mandatory to graduate high school?
I would say 30. It's like 15 a semester seems really reasonable.
Yeah, that's good. And then I just had one more question. Oh yes. What would you say is the biggest reason to not go forth with making community service mandatory? Anybody?
The biggest reason not to go forward with it
Yes.
would probably be that people wouldn't be supportive of it.
Sure. Any other questions that you guys have at all? Okay, thank you. Yeah.